Hi, I'm India Fisher, and this is The Sirens of Audio.
First Doctor box set and a matcha green tea? No? Okay. Gallifrey 5 box set and a chamomile herbal infusion? Who are you? Wrong podcast. Sorry. Cassette version of Genesis of the Daleks and Slipback and a Symington's Dandelion tea? I had those already. Could you go away and do something useful? Like what? Could you subscribe to the Sirens of Audio and like and share their videos? I should be able to manage that. Good. It'll stop you bothering me. And I guarantee it'll bring joy to your world. G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other cult TV in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
G'day Philip, I love your wide eyes there when you introduced yourself.
Well, you did the same thing, I was just trying to mimic you.
You're mirroring again, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. All right, today's a great one. We've got a couple of guests on today. We have got Nicholas Briggs on once more, and we've got our friend Todd from the Flight Through Entirety podcast joining us, and they will both be talking about the Stuff of Legend, which is the Big Finish live show that was recorded last year and performed last year in front of a live audience 4 times. It was done over a weekend, 4 different times. And Todd was over in the UK at the time, and he is going to give us his feedback on how the show was for him. And so but also we're going to get some behind the scenes info from Nicholas Briggs later on. But before we do that, Philip, do you know what?
Yes.
Oh, well, let's do it. We have to jump down the rabbit hole. Let's go. Philip. Live performance. You're a theatre guy, so have you ever seen one of these done before? Have you ever seen a radio play done live? I know you haven't seen this one, of course, but the Stuff of Legend. But have you seen any others?
I've seen a few plays that were done as radio plays. So I go to the Ensemble Theatre quite regularly, which is a theatre that is in Sydney. And they recently did what's it called? Death on the Wireless was the show called, and it was 2 one-act plays. One was a Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes, and the other one I can't remember who the play was by. But there, the actors were all on stage with microphones, and they had the Foley person, and so we got to watch some plays done live then, like they would have done in the olden days. So I've seen that, and I have actually been to into the ABC when they've done some things live as well many years ago, when they did some radio drama as well. So I have seen some radio dramas done live. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And how do you find that experience? Do you find it it's a different experience to theatre, obviously, but enjoyable?
Yeah, I think there was intriguing things watching the Foley people, just how they managed to get their sounds, because they're often using things you wouldn't expect them to use to get the sounds that produce the sounds. So just watching all these live effects happening at the time, and they've got their little doors, like on these a foot tall little door that open, and little locks, and often they've got a series of locks on a board, and so they've got all these things set up to go, ready to go for sounds. And it's just often it's very intriguing. I must admit, you get more caught up watching the Foley people than you do actually watching the actors.
Yeah. I've got to say I've never seen anything live in person myself, but one thing I do recall very well is the last Goon Show, which was released on video. I don't know if you've seen that one too, but I was a huge fan of the Goon Show, listened to them all the time. And watching that was fascinating, just to watch how much the performers put their bodies into it. And I guess that was the same with the Stuff of Legend too. I wish they were releasing that on DVD so we could have a look at that, or is it even as a video download. That would be fantastic to get the Stuff of Legend that way.
Well, it was recorded, so maybe we all just have to contact the Big Finish and say, "Hey, Big Finish, release it as a download."
Yeah, bring it out. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because it seems to be, well, more and more people that we know in Doctor Who circles are doing it. Nigel Fairs was doing it with Colin Baker and Terry Malloy doing radio productions. When Fraser was out here, he was talking to us about going back and doing a radio production. He was going on tour with that for a few weeks when he went home. So, it seems to be becoming more and more popular.
I think it's a quick thing that you can pull together because you still have script in hand. I think it's just it's a safer way of doing things, and it's cheaper than having to build huge amounts of sets and all the blocking and all the rehearsal period. So with things are often tight. Often it's a cheaper way for, as I said, I'm pretty sure the ensemble is part of their season because it's a much cheaper way to throw a play in and keep the overall cost for a season down.
And it's also a great way to get inexpensive merchandise too. So you can get the recording of that, put it together, release it as a download or a CD.
Yep.
Although things like CDs are getting more and more expensive to produce. So download seems to be where a lot of people are going.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know whether Big Finish will do it more down the track, because I would certainly love to see one if I ever get the chance. It'd be nice to see one with you, Philip.
Yes. Maybe it'd fly over the next time they do another one, and
That'd be
Nick,
cool.
give us free tickets. We'll come over.
All right, let's jump up out of the rabbit hole. I'll throw in a trailer for The Stuff of Legend, which was released in December. The live version was released. I'll throw in a trailer for it, and we'll come back with Todd's thoughts on the production after that.
Everyone sitting comfortably? Then let's begin.
Tonight I shall finally know what lies in the darkness.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Stuff of Legend, the live show.
We're not lost, Charlie. Think of it more, we've gone on holiday by mistake.
Doctor, that's life with you all over.
What can I say? I'm the original accidental tourist.
With a strong emphasis on the accidental.
It began around midsummer. There was talk of corpse lights seen in the old Merry Maid mine. Or there's fishing boats a-bobbing in the bay, which went out fully crewed in the morning and returned empty by nightfall. And sounds of digging from the mine. Now what's doing that digging, miss? 'Cause it sure ain't living men.
Smash it into the rock wall! Alert! Alert! I am under attack! Now, Doctor! I'm losing my grip! The castle, quickly! Push it, Captain! Push!
Something's coming!
There, by the beard of St. Piran.
It's like St. Elmo's fire.
Ignis fatuus.
Don't be afraid. It's quite friendly.
Friendly?
It's possible I've summoned the wrong one.
The wrong one.
Identify yourself!
I am the master, and I demand to see your line manager.
Watch your feet, gentlemen! Rail tracks! If we're lucky, they might lead to to a mine cart. Missed! What's the matter? Vision impaired?
Want this thing go any faster?
I have a feeling it's about to. Heads down!
What do you mean?
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
And now, for an encore, Zagreus.
Well, Todd, thanks for joining us.
Lovely to be here. Lovely to see you both. We saw each other a few weeks ago.
Yeah, great to see you.
At
yes,
in the Sydney event.
Now, the reason we wanted to chat with you today is because we discovered recently that you had been at the live performance of The Stuff of Legend, the Big Finish live production. How did you end up finding yourself there?
Well, I was over in London on my honeymoon with my husband, and we were due to meet up with Jason Hay Gallery, and then out of the blue he said, "Oh, look, do you want to come along to the Stuff of Legend on the Sunday. I've got tickets for you. And, you know, I couldn't say no. And to go to a live recording of something like this. And, you know, Ash is not a Doctor Who fan per se, he's a Doctor Who fan through me. And he's been, of course, to the events that you run here in Sydney with guest actors. But to actually see a recording process of audio was something, you know, unique and new to him.
Was it new for you as well? Had you ever seen any recording like that before?
I don't think I've seen a live recording. I've seen recording of audio, like, you know, per se, for I can't remember what it was for, but, you know, in booths and that sort of thing. And I used to be involved with the vet entertainment industry at school, so there was some stuff that I did there with training where I'd been into sort of studios. But I sort of had a bit of an idea of what was going to happen, but I wasn't quite sure, you know, how they were going to do certain things.
So had you known about this before Jason offered you the tickets? Did you know this was happening?
I did know it was happening, but we had such a schedule on our honeymoon, like I just kind of went, you know, we're just doing what we need to do, and I'm not going to try and drag Ash into all these Doctor Who things that are in and around. But, you know, when things pop up like this, you don't say no, you take the opportunity, you know.
Absolutely.
It's so funny because a few weeks later, Pete McTighe messaged me and said, "Oh, would you like to go to the Happiness Patrol and see that in the BPI, you know, the remount of that?" And, you know, we were out in the country, so we drove back and caught a train, and, you know, we could have taken a plane to get there. So two funny things happened whilst we were away, and this was one of them where you just take that opportunity.
Awesome. It's not what you know.
It's who you know.
Is it? That's right. So give us your impressions of just walking into the theatre. First of all, where was it, and what was your impression of the theatre?
It was in Chelsea. I can't pronounce the name. It's the Cadogan Hall. My apologies if that is completely botched. And, you know, it's actually a musical recital hall. And so we had to enter. We were downstairs, like in the stalls, and there was easily a few hundred people, you know, in the stalls, and then there was an upper section as well, which was quite open, and you had the stage set out in front of you with the TARDIS on one side, and the police box, the roundels. I think there was a Dalek on the other side, and all the seats and microphones for the actors out the front. But there was a line up to get in. You know, it was quite busy. Jason said to us that the Saturday was always on the card. Sunday was added later, you know, after Saturday was complete sellout. So he said, like, Saturday was like rock star welcome. It was all the big Finnish hardcore people that really desperately wanted to go. And so they gave them like a rock star welcome and everything like that. Not to say they didn't get one from us, but there might have been different people in the audience. I don't know. But it was funny. There was another Australian fan that I knew that had come along and was messaging, and they ended up sitting literally above us. Like, they took a photograph above us and us looking back up. You know, it was very funny to have that. But it was a sellout. Like, it was still a sellout. We were on the Sunday afternoon, and there was still one more performance to go.
Was that Nathan? Who was the other?
Yes, Nathan Farrow. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I saw his posts there too. Yeah.
Yeah, but Jason was saying that everybody was fairly tired because obviously they'd spent over a month rehearsing what they were going to do on stage, and then having done 2 performances the previous day, and then we were obviously, you know, number 3 in that space. And you might think that, you know, recording or audio, you're just sitting down, but you are performing vocally and you are giving a performance in order to get that across on the audio medium.
Can you describe the vibe of the audience that you were in, and what it was like as the artists came out on stage?
Oh, they got a great reception. You know, everybody was really. You could hear the cheers, especially for India and for Paul. I think they got the highest cheers. But, you know, Not to say that Nicholas Briggs didn't get any, or Barnaby Edwards, who are well known to the audience, and of course Carolyn Seymour as one of the guest artists, as a Star Trek actor and actress of great standing. And so everybody got it. It was literally coming in one at a time and getting that rousing reception. And you could see people really, really excited to be there. And they had outside downstairs in sort of the bar area, they had their merchandise table and their programs and stuff, and there was big queues to get all of that sort of all those things, which I managed to procure, like the program here, which I've got in front of me.
That looks great.
Yeah, so
what does the inside look like?
You've got all the cast, right? There's interviews with them, everybody here. I don't know if...
That's a pretty expensive program to do, actually, for just 4 performances.
Yes, I think so. And, then there's, just a bit about everybody. There's a bit of an interview with there's production credits, and there's some, there's other things that's going on there, this is Patti LuPone. Do you know the Sydney Recital Hall at all in town?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's sort of like that, but just not so many levels. Like there's only 2 levels. So, but it's definitely a musical hall, and acoustically wise. So, but they got big cheers from everybody, and people were dressed up as they always are at these events, which is really great to see. Really, the audio medium is alive and well.
What did you think of the actual play? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, actually, I did. Well, of course. It's not like they do it, I don't know if you want me to talk about this, but the way in which they do it, everybody's sitting across the stage with their scripts on a stand and the microphones in front of them. And I think Carolyn Seymour was down one end with Barnaby Edwards, and then who was next? I think Nisha Naya and Jason Forbes, and then it was Paul, India, and Alex McQueen. And then there was a booth for Nicholas Briggs, because he obviously had to do the Dalek voices. And then, I don't know who the last person was. It could have been Gabriel Clark, but he was doing all the Foley sound. And, I mean, as your listeners would know, when any audio is recorded, you're just recording, like they might do it I think they do it like in a day, don't they? And they just go through everything, and they have a number of takes.
Yeah. And do dialogue.
And they
stop, post-production.
And they stop, and they don't give you any ray guns, they don't give you any sound effects, that's all later. But in a live performance, you're going from woe to go. Barnaby's directing the whole thing as the director. But they had both lighting and sound effects, as well as the guy doing the Foley on the stage. So what I mean by that is, if somebody was walking, he'd have like a box of gravel and a sand shoe, and making that sound live, and any other sounds that needed to be. So actually seeing that process, I mean, it's a bit different, obviously, from recording in a studio, but actually giving that sort of element to the audience sort of helped you be in the moment and actually feel like what was going on. The other great thing was the fact that you also get to see when people make mistakes, and the fact that you've got to stop and go back and redo it again. And I must say, they didn't make many mistakes at all. In fact, it was Alex McQueen who made most of the mistakes, and he made one, I don't know, it was about 3/4 of the way through. And he had to go back and do it 2 or 3 times. It was very funny. But it was good just for the audience to see that, because everybody else wasn't really making mistakes. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, they're just going to think like, this is how smooth the recordings go all the time, and it's so sort of easy to do. But when we know that it's not. And, Paul and India were just electric, I thought. They were really giving a wonderful performance. And the guest artists too, because they had to play multiple characters. So seeing Barnaby or one of the other guys play different characters and change their voices and change their mannerisms, and, as they do that, was really interesting. So it was from that aspect, as well as integrating all of, these other like ray guns and lighting and sound and wind and rain and whatever else was happening was really it was interesting to see that. That's what held my attention coming from a sort of production perspective. I have to say, poor Ash nodded off at one point, and I certainly at some point was closing my eyes, going, I was falling asleep a bit because, truth be told,
The jet lag.
no. Truth be told, in any audio that I listen to, my mind wanders at some point, and I have to go back and rewind and listen to it again. And sometimes I fall asleep, or I'm out walking. I don't know what it is. It's something like at the moment you get distracted, or
I hope you're not falling asleep while you're out walking.
no. But if I'm in bed listening to things, but
Yeah, I know
if
what you
I'm
mean.
outside walking, sometimes my mind will wander. But the same thing there, like having all those other elements there. It was intriguing because then you were following the story through and you were keeping entertained. And when the Daleks had to appear, then all the lighting changed and he spoke, and then some of the actors, I don't know, in some scenes where they were all together, ran around. Well, that's right. I think India had to pretend to be a Dalek at one point, and so she managed to go into the booth with Nicholas Briggs and use the Dalek thing to pretend to be a Dalek. So that was hilarious, and everybody loved that. So seeing those things happen and seeing the interaction between the different actors was great. But Barnaby sort of stepped everybody through the process to begin with, as to what was going to happen, and if mistakes were made and that sort of thing, and we had our cliffhangers, and I think there was an intermission as well. So it was good to have that to be recharged to come back in for the second half.
Barnaby was directing the whole way through the play. You could see him.
He would let people go, but at times there might have had to have been, where they were up to and setting the scene and saying where we were. But you could see him sometimes giving like little visual cues to people to go or speed it up or that sort of thing without necessarily saying that. So I think they had done from Jason's perspective, I think they'd done a pretty intensive rehearsal process because they would have had to got very familiar with that script beforehand, as well as getting used to when all the different sound effects and lighting effects, whether that be pre-recorded or live on stage, were happening, because otherwise it would have been a shambles if they weren't expecting it, because it's obviously different from when you're in the studio and don't have that sort of thing. I think for me the intriguing thing was the thing they just went from beginning to end in order. And whereas I kind of thought when they had recorded stuff in the Big Finish studios, I was under the impression they might do it out of order. They don't do that. But they do it out of order, don't they? Or depending on who's available and that sort of thing. They might do all of Paul's scenes, first if he needs to go. But so that to me was intriguing to see how the actors were going there and just keeping on the ball and making sure they were, going, oh, it's my turn, which I think happened a couple of times. But, they'll edit all that out. And of course, one thing that they said, there's 4 performances. So for the live edit, it's going to be recorded, all of them. And they will take the best parts of that, different sequences, whatever scenes they happened to think were reacted to the best or acted the best on the day.
It sounds much more like what they do with a BBC production, which is, BBC shows often filmed all in order, live Foley. So it's going back to the old style way of doing recording. But as I said, it was all done for the entertainment of the crowd more than anything else, I think. Well,
yes, I think that's really important. Otherwise, if you didn't have those elements, people would be might be not as engaged. Jason was saying the actors were tired, going into that last performance. They only get a couple of hours off in between. But they were, you couldn't really tell, they were giving it their all, third time through, or probably, 40th time through, depending on how much rehearsal they had done.
So when you say there was 4 performances, there was 2 a day over that weekend, wasn't
Yes, the matinee and the evening performances on Saturday and the Sunday. But it's really good to see, I think, hadn't seen Indira or Paul for some time, on stage. And, seeing what they bring to the performance all these years later, 20 years, 25 years after the beginning of Big Finish. Because people, I mean, as you know, when you listen to these people age and their voices get older, and, can they go back to how they once were? And I think they did a pretty good job. So,
time to go to sleep.
Yes, was that me? That was probably me. Lovely. Thank you. Oh my goodness, there you go. So, but yeah, I was really glad that we ended up going to see it. It was, if you're ever over, I hope they do it again. Let's put it that way. I hope they do another live one, maybe with a different team, so people get these maybe once a year. I would say it's a pretty big logistic to get the space and put it on and do all those rehearsals above and beyond what they normally do. But I certainly think that from the point of view of the people who were there, that it went down very well. And, I'd be intrigued to see other people because, when we see them, we're usually at a convention, they're talking about things from the past, anecdotes that we've heard before, doing signings, etc. But this is actually seeing actors act
at work. Yeah.
And what they do. You just don't get up there and just be able to read off a script. Like, it's not that easy. You've got to get the inflections, the intent, depending on whether they're, an exposition scene or whether they're running away from the monsters or confronting the master or the Daleks or whoever the villains ended up being.
Sounds like it was a lot of fun. Wish I was there.
Well, as I said,
Me too.
I really hope that they do it again and they do it regularly, because I think it would be a real treat for Big Finish fans, and it would maybe give fans from Australia who are really into things to actually the opportunity to go over and experience something a bit different.
Thanks for sharing that with us,
No,
Todd.
thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I'm really glad that Jason reached out and we went. It was, and seeing somebody like Barnaby Edwards, who had to not only direct but two different parts, and Carolyn Seymour, who I knew from various Star Trek roles. So just seeing also a bit of the guest cast, that is also a bonus.
Master Audiophile, at last you are here. I and all my fellow fans of the classic era have listened to you faithfully through the thousands of releases on Big Finish and BBC Audio. We have declared the quality of your storytelling.
Stand. Look upon my face.
Great one. Master Audiophile, I dare not.
Look. You have the face of a TV viewer.
Master, spare me. Spare me! I'm a true listener of high-quality audio drama!
We are the Sirens of Audio podcast. You need no other. Bye. We bring Doctor Who's gift of audio to all humans.
Well, I appreciate Todd for coming on and sharing his thoughts with us. It was great to have a little chat afterwards too, Philip.
Always great to chat with Todd, you know that.
Absolutely. Looking forward to catching up with him in person again too at Matthew Waterhouse. If you haven't got your tickets for Matthew Waterhouse live in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide, go to sirensofaudio.com and grab your tickets there. We would love to see you in person, where we might even do something for the podcast live on that day too. You never know.
I'm sure we will.
All right. We spoke recently to Nick Briggs as well, who, of course, is the voice of the Daleks and the executive producer, creative director for Big Finish, about the stuff of legend. And here is what Nick had to say.
Well, once again, we have the great privilege of welcoming back executive producer to Big Finish, Nicholas Briggs. Nick, welcome back.
Well, it's great to be back.
I know, it feels like it's been too long.
It's been ages.
So, anyhow, we wanted to talk to you about the stuff of legend, big celebration, 25th anniversary, both audio and show. Once again, can you tell us, how did the stuff of legend come about?
The stuff of legend came about because operations director Hannah Peel and I eventually failed to stop Jason Haig-Ellery from doing it. He'd been hammering on about doing a Big Finish live Doctor Who for years and years and years, way back before the pandemic. And that, if we can remember that time. And, you know, even before the pandemic, Hannah and I were visiting venues for possible. I think it sort of came about because I'd done some demonstrations of Big Finish audio drama at a couple of BBC big events at the Excel in London, you know, to celebrate various anniversaries. You know, and I'd made sections of audio drama and played in sound effects from QLab and stuff, and done sound effects live on stage and got members of the audience up to participate in the scenes as well. So I think that, you know, Jason had thought, oh, we could do a whole thing, couldn't we? You know, and I knew it would be a logistical nightmare to make it as good as it should be. You know, I think it would have been really easy and cheap to do a kind of naff version of it with just a few people on stage around a microphone, and that's it. But I thought, if we're doing this publicly, and he wanted to do it at Cadogan Hall eventually, because Jason had an in there with a partner he works with in a company called Fourth Wall. I thought, this is, and it's going to be in London. You know, we need to do this properly, really. And so it was quite a struggle to get that to happen. But you know, what I initially did was I said to Jason, "You really want to do this yet?" And I said, "Right, it has to be a big Doctor Who extravaganza. So it has to have at least have the Daleks in it. It probably needs the Eighth Doctor, because we know that Paul McGann will do it, and India will be great to do it on stage." And possibly we should chuck in the Master as well, shouldn't we? It should be a very Doctor Who-y bit of Doctor Who. It should be archetypal Doctor Who, maybe a bit Philip Hinchcliffe-y, you know, that kind of feel to it as well. So, and I said, I think the best writer to do this would be Rob Valentine, because he can do all these things brilliantly, and he's pretty fast as well. And I said, and you need Barnaby Edwards to direct it, because he's had lots of experience of theatre, and also there's something about Barney's dogged determination of the show must go on. He's had the same sort of background as me in doing weekly rep theatre, where, you know, no matter what goes wrong, the show has to happen. And we've got loads of brilliant people at Big Finish who would quite sensibly have somewhere halfway through the project gone, this is impossible. We can't actually achieve this. This is mad. There are too many problems to solve. But Barney has a kind of superhuman determination, and he takes creative responsibility completely. And he is also, Barney's a great showman. He can step up on stage and entertain an audience all by himself. And I knew all these qualities were essential. So I made sure we got them on board. The storyline, we worked through ideas for the storyline with Barnaby and with Rob, sort of talking about what kind of show it should be, what opportunities for audience participation, and the sort of things that would work on stage and really get an audience to react. And then
can I just ask, how do you do that? How do you work that process? I mean, we're actually meeting live with a whiteboard and fleshing out ideas.
No, it's all Zoom. It's all on Zoom. Just talking about stuff. Our lives are spent on Zoom, you know, looking at screens. We occasionally have in-person meetings, but we didn't at all in the preparation for Stuff of Legend. And at some points it was big Zoom meetings with all sorts of people on them, you know, representing the Fourth Wall live and Cadogan Hall and what have you. But yeah, so that's how we hammered all that out, and then documents going back and forth, and then we should add this. But anyway, the storyline was submitted to the BBC and approved, and then I didn't hear anything back from Jason. I said, we've got a storyline. There was another potential title. I said, but I like this title, The Stuff of Legend. I said, I think that just says it all. Sounds like a celebration, but it also sounds like it might be, with the word legend in there, it also sounds like it might be, you know, about sort of strange ancient powers, and, you know. but then, I just didn't hear anything from Jason for months about it. And I thought, oh, well, as before, it stopped. And then he said, oh, no, we're definitely going ahead. I said, maybe you should have told me, because now we need to commission him to write it. So has he not written it? I said, no, because you didn't say that we were definitely doing it. So anyway, so Rob, luckily, I said he was fast. He got on with it. And I said, you know what we have to do? We have to release a studio pre-recorded, pre-sound design version of it. I said, because if people come to see the show, if I came to see a live show of a Doctor Who thing and I loved it, I want to buy the CD on the way out, because I think, oh, I love that so much. I want to listen to it again when I get home. And initially, Jason was worried that would put people off buying the live version of the show. I said, I don't think so. I said, it will be significantly different. And people like to collect different versions of things, don't they? Don't we? We do, don't we?
Yes, we do. We do.
Yeah. So that was the extra rush. He said, well, so luckily we got it into studio as fast as possible. Everything fell into place beautifully. Rob Valentine produced it, and Barnaby Edwards, as I say, directed. He directed the audio only, the studio version. And, the two of them, I did a lot of heavy leaning on them, in the sense of saying to them, guys, you've got to step up. I really need you to, make this happen. I know it's difficult. I know it's short notice. And both Rob and Barney are the kind of people who, when you say that to them, they don't do what a plumber or a builder does. Where they go, oh, yeah, no problem. And then 10 months later, you're still waiting for the wall to be built because they've taken 5 other jobs in the meantime and are keeping you on. They're the kind of people, when you ask them to step up, they will step up and deliver what they promised to deliver. And they were relentless in their pursuit of detail and making sure that everything was in place. And it worked really well, because when we had Barney played 2 parts in it brilliantly. I mean, he's such a brilliant actor. And he also directed on stage as well. So I'd be waiting to start a scene to do the Dalek voice, and Barney would be, it was nice and theatrical, but it was also needed, because he had the timing in his head about how this would work. Yeah, I honestly, I know it's a bit dull when people in entertainment go on and on about how brilliant people are, but those 2 guys in particular did such a fabulous job. I should also mention Lizzie Worstel, who's the supervising producer at Big Finish, who latterly got involved during the rehearsal process, which is something we were very keen to have. I think there was talk of not rehearsing it, which was just insane. And she was there solving so many last-minute problems during the rehearsals. I mean, mundane stuff about where people can get food from, who's going to do the coffee run. And so all those things, if they don't happen, they really ruin everyone's day. But all sorts of intricate problems she was solving, and during the performances as well. So hats off to those 3 in particular.
Radio stage plays a popular thing in the UK and a common. I sort of started noticing them when people like Colin Baker, Terry Malloy were doing Hound of the Baskervilles, that kind of thing. So is that a recent thing, or have they always been happening?
Well, I mean, there's a slight tradition of it from the fact that quite a lot of radio comedy is performed in front of a live audience. So there is something, I think, in the British mindset of, it's not entirely alien for them to turn up to a theatre and watch people reading stuff out, but performing it, but not having learnt it, and no movement on stage. But there was a sort of a re-emerging fad for it as simply a theatre thing, and not to just record it for a radio broadcast. A few years ago, like with stage productions of old BBC comedies like Round the Horn, there was also, the radio presentation on stage of Dad's Army with Jack Lane and David Benson doing that. And that was extraordinarily popular, particularly with me when I went to see it. I completely embarrassed my wife and son by laughing and crying in equal measure, crying with nostalgia and laughing at the fantastic performances. So yeah, it is something that I'm not saying it's like the most popular thing on British theatre, but it is something that is happening more and more. And I think I think production companies are attracted to it because the biggest problem that actors have that none of them ever admit to, it's like this shameful secret, is learning lines. You know, punters always say to actors, how do you learn all them lines, they say. And the truth of the matter is, you know, with great difficulty. And so I think it's very attractive to actors to do productions where they don't have to learn their lines. And it's also very attractive to production houses who don't have to worry about too much rehearsal, because so much of rehearsal for theatre is actors trying to get the lines in their head. I mean, some extraordinary actors do turn up to the first day of rehearsal already knowing it all. But in my experience, that's very rare. And even if they turn up thinking they know it all, like I did recently in a production I did, you find out that you don't really know it all. You have to kind of relearn it in the physical context of interacting with others. So yeah, it is a known thing, but we Barney made it visually interesting. You know, he said right from the beginning, we need lighting, we need some basic, you know, we need lights to whirl around, and we need some scenery. You know, people were bowled over when they turned up and saw the TARDIS and a Dalek and the exterior, the police box as well in the background. They weren't expecting that. And I think that, and we did a few physical interactions with each other. There was a lovely bit where the master's looking in a biscuit tin, and the Foley guy was to my left and the master was to the right, and I'm in a plastic sort of booth to isolate the ring modulator sound for the Dalek. And so the master's talking about having a biscuit, the Foley guy's rattling it over the tin over here, and then he wants to eat the biscuit. So the Foley guy opens the biscuit tin and passes the biscuit over to me, and I grab it and hand it to Alex McQueen over my screen the other side, and it always got a tremendous laugh, you know. We also put in a visual gag, and when you hear the live version, well, I put this visual gag in, terrible, shameless, hammy behavior. There's a bit where the Doctor says to the Dalek, you know, just look in the Dalek path web and you'll see all the pretty pictures of me or snapshots of me or something. And on the first performers, I paused and I went, like I was looking through photographs, and it always got a huge laugh. But of course, when you hear the live version, the huge laugh is there, but you don't know what I'm doing. And I thought this will be fun, because it took me back to the days of listening to Monty Python live at Drury Lane when I was a teenager. Yeah, and there were so many bits going on there, particularly when John Cleese was doing his albatross routine in the audience, where there's sort of all sorts of stamping around and stuff, and the audience are laughing their heads off, and you've no idea what's happening, but it's so joyous. So I think that will work. I think it's part of the fun of it.
Being involved at a director's and a writer's side of things in so many productions, is it nice for you to sit back and have someone else responsible for all that and just concentrate on performing?
Yes, finally, when it arrived, although I did have responsibilities right through the production process of making sure that things were happening. You know, you have to worry about stuff like how, you know, were we going to have monitor speakers for the actors to hear so they could hear all the sound effects and music, or were we going to have in-ear monitors? And the isolation stuff. I really had to insist on that so that not everyone sounded like a Dalek on stage, and making sure that there's like carpeting on the stage so that when people move around near the microphone, you don't get a horrible bang, 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 bang noise. You know, there was a lot for me to worry about. And also just making sure that Rob and Barney felt, I know this sounds corny, but felt emotionally supported, because they were going above and beyond. And I feel that one of my main tasks with them throughout was to keep telling them, you know, we love you guys. This is amazing what you're doing. And I know this is unreasonable, and I know this should have happened, but we're sorting it out, and let's find a way around this. So yeah, that's very much my role as creative director. I see it as supporting other people's creative endeavors. And because we all need to feel valued, and the more valued you feel, the more creatively free and productive you are. So, it feels like a weird amorphous thing to be doing as part of your job, but just making sure that people know that you think that they're doing a great job, and not in that kind of, oh, darling, you're marvelous showbiz way, which is, often means the opposite, or means I'm not really interested, but I'm just going to throw out a silly compliment. Trying to be very specific with people about what I think their contribution is and how important it is and the difference it's making. So I had a lot of underlying anxiety and tension with regard to that aspect of my job throughout the entire process. But you're right, once it came to the performance, and there I am on stage. I mean, I've spoken about this. Pardon?
Duck to water. You're back in your natural habitat.
Yeah. Oh, duck to water. Yes. I thought you said Dr. Water. I thought, who's that? Yeah. Yeah. It was nice to be out there. And, when Barney, it's very difficult to know who to introduce on stage first, because there's a sort of pecking order. So obviously the Doctor, Paul McGann, has to come on last. And India probably just performing. But what do you do with the other people? And I'm known for Doctor Who, so where do I fit in this? And Alex McQueen, he's more famous than me. So obviously the final three were Alex McQueen, India Fisher, and Paul McGann. So Barney took the nice step, which we didn't really discuss, of introducing me first. Which kind of makes me the least important, but also at the same time, it's quite nice to come on stage first. And it was on that first performance in particular, it was just an incredible moment where he didn't even say what I was playing. He just said Nicholas Briggs, and I opened the door to come onto the stage, and there's just this blast of applause and people cheering and thumbs up and all this going on. And I felt a huge emotional impact on me. And just for a few moments, I had to stop myself from spontaneously bursting into tears. And I did find that as I sat down to get my ring modulator ready and everything, I did notice that in spite of myself, there were some tears streaming down my face. I thought, oh God, some leaked out. I didn't mean that to happen. You're going to clip that bit and use it in the trailer, aren't you? Me just saying some leaked out. I just ask for it, don't I, really?
Yeah.
That'll go in as well. All these things I'm saying just get used out of context to make this interview sound more interesting than it actually turned out to be. But it's really corruptible. That kind of level of screaming and shouting, for an instant, you mistake yourself for a rock star. You come crashing back down to earth fairly soon. But it was also lovely for me because the Daleks don't come on for ages, but I'm there on stage. I helped out Gabriel with some sound effects at one point, really just to give me something to do in the first half. But I was able to look at the audience and watch them, and they were looking at every single character that spoke. It was almost like seeing all these, hundreds of heads go.
Playing tennis.
And they were looking, and it was just amazing. They were absorbed. Normally, if you get sight of an audience, you usually would find someone who's a bit bored or who's inappropriately fiddling with their phone or something. But it was like the whole room was completely focused. It was amazing. And every time there was an audience reaction, it was like there were spontaneous explosions set off underneath everyone's seat. It was emotional explosions, like little references to With Nail and I and things like that were in there. They just got huge reactions. It was incredible. And I remember looking at Paul McGann, you could see a look on his face like, this is going down really well, isn't it? Oh, this is good,
This is different to the studio booths.
Yes, I think he demands that now. We have to bring in 1,000 people for every studio recording to react.
How many performances did you do altogether?
We did 4. We were initially just going to do 2, so a matinee and an evening performance on the Saturday. And then it sold out so quickly. Jason thought, if it's sold out, it means there'll be more people. So we did do 2 more, on the Sunday. So it was so we did Thursday, Friday rehearsing all day, and then Saturday morning rehearsing right up until the first performance, and then So it was a busy 4 days. I can hear the violins playing for all the hard work I put in. Yeah.
No, it's excellent. You originally recorded it though back in, I think it was the April. So I mean, your usual. I think if I'm right in terms of how you do recordings, you go in, you've prepped the script beforehand, but really is just have a read through, practice reading through, then record, and you get it all done in 2 days. How different is the whole rehearsal period that you needed to do to put it on stage?
It was very different, actually, because, well, again, I have to sing Barney's praises because he had a beautiful way of running it, because there was a tendency for us all to be a bit giddy, and we were in the rehearsal room in the arrangement we were going to be on stage, and I was there with a ring modulator and a speaker so that people could hear the Dalek voice. But Barney is the perfect orchestrator of a rehearsal in that he allows everyone to have a bit of fun, but he manages to get us back to the serious stuff without being stern or being that person who spoils the fun. He has a way, and I don't know how he does it, actually. He has a way of going, yeah, I know. And so what we're doing here is, and no one gets offended. It's really difficult to change the mood of a rehearsal room without people going, yeah, all right, don't tell me off. You know what I mean? He's brilliant at it because he's so impeccably polite and constantly thinking of how it's going to sound, and also not too proud to reject any advice from me. He'd often look at me about some audio things, and I'd say, I think we do need the Dalek control room sound behind that. And people would say, well, is it really necessary? I said, they're Doctor Who fans. They want to hear that's in the trailer as well, isn't it? So he was very open. That's why I liked him. He's open to my suggestions. That's the truth of the matter, isn't it?
So in terms of you did the rehearsal, did the performances, how many recordings were made for the actual release?
We recorded all 4 performances.
And so Barnaby will decide the best cut for each one? Is that how
it has already done, yes. It was quite a task for Howard Carter, who was doing the sound design and music, because he... I got a rare opportunity to chat to him. He came to visit the studios the other day when I happened to be I was in an episode of the Paternoster Gang, and which was a lovely thing. And Howard was there, and he said, the trouble is, he said, with that recording, he said there were 17 mics active, because there were also mics in the audience to pick up audience reactions. He said, so every time I had to do an edit, that's 17 lots of audio to cut through and make sure, and dipping down other mics to make sure there's no spill and all this kind of thing. So he did a fantastic job. And yeah, it is an amalgam of all the best bits of all 4 performances. I don't know which performance there's most of or anything. I left that entirely to Barney. I mean, he asked my advice about a couple of things. I said, get all the laughs in. Go use the take where there was the best laugh for each bit. But I don't think he really needed to be told that. And I would just say Dylan, who did the recording for Fourth Wall, Howard said to me, whoever did the recording did a fantastic job. He said, that's no mean feat, to record all those actors and for there never to be a problem with any of the recording. He did a fantastic job. He got it. It was perfect every time. It was amazing. And also Fran, who was our deputy stage manager, for those not familiar with theatre, the deputy stage manager is like the sort of regimental sergeant major of a production, in that they actually make it happen. The officers may have their plans and ideas, but on the ground, it's the non-commissioned officers who actually make stuff happen. And that's what a deputy stage manager does. And so she was cueing all the sound effects, physically actually pressing the button and cueing through her mic the lighting cues as well. So the whole shape and structure of the show was governed by her. All the creatives, they hand it over to the DSM for the actual performance, and then they make it happen. And that is essential. That's what's wrong with most Doctor Who conventions, is they don't have a DSM. They never do. So that's why there's always this sort of shambolic sort of stumbling onto stage and people not knowing when to leave, or people not knowing when their time's up and all that kind of thing, because there's never a DSM. What you need, my ambition one day is to do a Doctor Who convention where there's a DSM controlling the show, and then it'll be so smooth.
You haven't been to one of ours, Nick?
No. What, is this an official invitation?
Of course it is. You're welcome anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever consider releasing this on video? Or was it only ever going to be audio?
Well, it has been videoed. I don't know whether I'm even allowed to say that, but there are no plans to release it on video. But I think, for posterity, it does exist. I mean, there was lots of behind the scenes video stuff done for promotional reasons, and therefore clips of the show can be included in all that. But yeah, it does. So it does exist visually.
Yeah, those of us who live on the other side of the planet wouldn't mind seeing something like that if that's possible at some stage.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've genuinely no idea whether it's ever going to be released in that form. So.
No, we lost the amazing.
It'd be good. It'd be good.
It would be good. It'd be good. Yes, definitely. So, original production had Annette Badland replaced by the wonderful Caroline Seymour. Was there just a conflict of dates in terms of?
Yeah, it's just Annette's. She just wasn't available. She wanted to do it, but she just couldn't make the dates, and that was the last thing that became immovable, the actual dates, because that had to be booked a long way in advance at the venue, this sort of immovable date, and there was nothing we could do. And so, we got Carolyn in, and that was great.
Yes, it's a bit. We've got one amazing classic actress replaced by another amazing classic actress. So.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah. Nothing to complain about there. Was there? Everyone else was the same, were they?
Yes, I think everyone else came across. So Paul Way's costume, was that his choice? I mean,
it was entirely his choice.
Yeah, was that lovely?
Yeah, it's crazy. He just turned up and he had an assistant with him to sort out the costume details. Because we were saying, well, none of us are doing costume. I mean, I certainly couldn't do it in costume. So we all thought we'd just do sort of smart casual, whatever you call it, sports casual. No, and then we thought, well, we can't do costume. But Paul just said, no, I want to wear a costume, and we thought, well, we're not going to argue with Doctor Who, are we?
No.
It's brilliant. I mean, it was so special for the audience that he was in his costume, and it was a beautifully made costume, and it looked fantastic.
Well, the people I know who were there just said it was the most amazing atmosphere. It was a wonderful performance. They adored every moment of it, and I'm just so jealous I couldn't get there.
I know, it's an amazing thing to do. An amazing thing to do. And we got a bit sort of, we always had it in mind that if there were mistakes, we'd make a thing of it to say, well, this is how we do an audio play. But we were very hyped up on the first two performances, so there were no mistakes. And if there was an inkling of a mistake, we fudged our way through it without the audience noticing. But by the Sunday, we didn't fake mistakes at all, but we kind of, when things were going that way, we let them happen, and fessed up, and it got huge reactions. And of course, I'm terrible about this sort of thing. It's any opportunity to get a laugh, and there I am on stage. So there's Alex McQueen having about 3 goes at saying a line, and he was in a scene with me, so my mic was live, and I was saying, "Shall I exterminate him now?" And getting a big laugh for that. But it was great. It was great fun. So I think we've included on the release, there are some of the outtakes as well. There were only a few, I think it was about 4 or 5 actual mistakes that happened on the Sunday, between the 2 Sunday performances. And the audience got even more with us after the mistakes. You sense that the room warmed even further. There is a terrible thing that, hoary, hammy old actors do in farces and things where they pretend to find it funny as well. and they go to say a line and they go, and and the audience go, wow. And, the number of audience members I've heard saying, God, it was so funny. Even the cast thought it was funny. I thought, yeah, no, the cast have rehearsed this and been playing it for 6 months. They're doing that to make you laugh more. And it always, if you do it right, ask Fraser Hines, he's a past master at this, if you do it right, the audience just come on board even further, You need an icebreaker moment, if you want audience reaction. I always think of that film, The Parole Officer, that film, the Steve Coogan movie. And I went to see it in it was a matinee screening of it. And there was not many people in the audience. It wasn't empty, but it was sort of like a third full. And it was getting no real laughs. Now, some people might say that's because it's no good as a movie. I actually love it. But there's a point about, I don't know, a quarter of the way into the movie where he goes to visit a friend of his in Blackpool, where there are lots of big dippers and rides and stuff. And his friend is Indian and cooks him a fantastic curry. And then they go on this big dipper and then he proceeds to vomit copiously everywhere. And then the audience just scream with outraged laughter. And from that moment on, the rest of the film, the audience are just laughing at every single thing because they've been let loose, And I'm not sure what that moment was in the Stuff of Legend. It might have been the With Nail and I line about going on holiday accidentally or whatever it is. You know the line? We might be on holiday accidentally. I think that's it. A terrible to misquote it. But the moment that happened, the audience thought, "Oh, hold on, this is going to be fun, isn't it? We can laugh at stuff," and it was tremendous.
Well, congratulations on a successful branch out of Big Finish again, now live. Are you planning more live shows in the future?
No. I mean,
this is such hard work. You don't want to do it again?
Well, yeah. In many ways, creatively, would love to do it again, but there were many hurdles that were jumped over in desperation that I would worry wouldn't work again the next time. But it would be nice to do something like that. Maybe find smaller scale versions of it. I went to a audio drama hub podcast, Podfest, and there were people presenting sections of their audio drama podcasts, and they were just doing it, very modestly, and little 20-minute extracts. And I thought, well, maybe we could do things like that at Big Finish Days, just present short extracts or write something special for the event and just have someone at the side of the stage, on stage, pressing the old Q Lab button, if you know what I mean, that cues in sound effects. It's really, really good because you can cue sound effects over sound effects. So you can hit a button to do the background noise and then a gun noise, but it won't cancel out the background noise, you know what I mean? So, and you could do live effects. So maybe something, I mean, I'm a performer at heart.
Exactly.
So that's my comfort zone.
As much as it's a headache, I know thousands of people got to see people they adore live on stage doing what they love to hear. So,
well, Jason said that he had a tear in his eye when he watched it, and he watched all 4 performances and really enjoyed them. And he said there was something very moving about it all coming together and about the audience loving it so much. It was lovely.
Well, congratulations again, and I hope I get to see it one day.
Yeah, who knows?
Always good to get Nick's thoughts, isn't it, Philip?
Yes, he also has a lot to say, and it's always valuable. Good insights.
Thank you very much, Nick. All right, that finishes up the episode this week. But before we go, just some recommendations of things we've been listening to. And what I'd like to recommend is, well, I can't because the list says it's your turn, Philip, to go first.
Okay. I'm actually going to give you something I've been binging at the moment. I've been binging a series called Elite, which apparently I think it's pretty old. I think it came out about 2017, maybe. It's a few seasons in now. I just found it. It's on Netflix. It's a Spanish drama, and I've been watching it with the subtitles. So I think there is an option you can actually have it where it's been dubbed in English. But I like watching the performers use their voices because you get more of a performance rather than the dubbed version. And it's all set in a very elite school for all the elites of Spain. So these are the people with mega money who think they rule the place, and the local school falls down through. You find out reasons why, but I think there's 3 kids who get scholarships to come to this elite school, and just the way it messes with everyone by having these 3 poor kids come to the school and the effect that has on everyone. And thrown in with all that is the very beginning of it, someone's been murdered. And so the whole first season is you actually try to work out who's got murdered and then try to work out why they've been murdered and who did it. So the first season is just utterly brilliant. And I must have been I binged the whole thing, just in terms of this whole murder mystery thing. And then the second season starts very similarly. So there's a few seasons to go. I'm only sort of halfway through the second season, but if you're into a bit of a whodunit mystery, there's a bit of sex scenes you've got to get through, but aside from that, it's actually quite intriguing watching these power play between money and no money and etc. It's interesting. That's what I've been doing at the moment. What about you, Dwayne? What have you been watching?
Well, I'm going to recommend something I've been listening to, and it's a band actually that I was introduced to. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I got a text out of the blue from an old friend. I give him a shout out. Anton is his name, and he said to me, "Is this still your number?" It had been that long since we texted. We had been communicating on Facebook, but he texted me and checked that I was still here. And it turned out that he was visiting Tasmania, staying about 10 minutes away from where I live, and wanted to visit. So he came around one night. I cooked some dinner for him, and we listened to music all night. And he wanted to introduce me to. Oh, the interesting thing about Anton is he introduced me to prog. So the first prog album I listened to, called Lark's Tongues in Aspic by King Crimson, that was Anton who introduced that one to me, and that was always a happy memory that I have. And so I'm grateful to him for the music he's introduced me to. But he introduced me to a band that I remember him talking about years ago, but I never really got into, but we played some on the night. And it's a band that's still going today. They've been going for a very long time, an English band called Cabaret Voltaire, and they're kind of proto-electronic music. Very, very interesting stuff. I listened to the album with him, The Voice of America, and I thought, electronic, because I'm more of a guitar person myself, and I thought, okay. So I started listening, and within about 30 seconds to a minute, I was kind of transfixed on the track, and I couldn't stop listening. And so, thank you, Anton, for introducing me to someone else that is very good to listen to. So that's my album, The Voice of America by Cabaret Voltaire. Check it out. All right, that is us for this installment. And this episode was certainly the stuff of legend, Philip, just as you are.
Thanks, Dwayne. You too.
Thank you very much for being with us. We will catch you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, the stuff of legend, with our guests Todd Bilby and Nicholas Briggs, with your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Catch up with all the latest info, including news on our live events, at sirensofaudio.com. Got some feedback? Send your email to sirensofaudio@gmail.com, or you can find us on all our social media at Audio Sirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.